We are live. Okay. All right, everybody. So we're doing now Halak Bet, like last week, 2 weeks ago. Halak Bet of the Yehave Daat, Siman Ted Zayin, 16. And the question is, Moshe, you want to read it?
Yes.
Bet Ted Zayin.
Halak Bet, Siman Bet.
No, your Halak Bet, which you're in, Siman Ted Zayin.
מי שמגלה?
Yeah.
So start with the שאלה.
Yeah.
שאלה, מי שמגלח זקנו בתא, שעל פי ההלכה הרי הוא עובר בכל פעם ב5 להבין מן התורה, כמו שנאמר לו תשחית את פאת זקניך, האם מותר בכל זאת לעלותו לספר תורה ממניין 7 עולים, או מכיוון שדינו כעבריין אין לעלותו לספר תורה?
English?
A person who shaves his beard with a blade, with a razor,
Which is not allowed.
and that we know according to halacha is actually breaking 5 do not do's, as it says, do not destroy or do not, anyway, do not shave with a razor your beard. Are we allowed to call him for the Torah as part of the 7 people of the Torah for Shabbat? After all, we do know that he broke an halacha, and maybe perhaps for that we should not call him, or we should not count him as one of the 7.
Right. And obviously you can say this applies to other violations, not only razor. Razor is a very common one. One of the poskim he brings down says most people, in his opinion, shave with the razor. Most Jews will shave with the razor. One of the poskim here say. So that's probably why the example he brought is a razor. It's just a widely violated halakha. People just don't know.
So it was the extreme.
Yeah. So it could be other things that people do as well. Abariyan. So I'm gonna paraphrase like always, but you have the siman, and I encourage you to look it up after, or if you can during, but for sure after. That's why I always make sure to say that at the place we are. Yehave Daat, Halak Bet, Siman Ted Zayin. Once I'll give you everything outside, and then afterwards you can read it inside. Okay. So the first thing we have here is Gemara Megillah, page 23 says, and he quotes it over here. Tanur Banan, Hakol Olim the Minyan Shiv'ah. Everyone counts for 7, and even children. Even children, people count for the Torah according to the letter of the law. Children can go to the Torah. These days we don't do it. These days we don't send children and women to the Torah, but according to the bottom line halakha, children and women are allowed to go to the Torah according to the Gemara. There's no problem at all with this. These days we don't do it. So the Gemara doesn't say except for sinners, just said everyone is allowed to go up for the Torah. And so that statement like that would seem to say that a sinner is allowed to go to the Torah. There's another famous Gemara on Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin he quotes as well, and he says, thank you. And the Gemara says, everyone is called children of Hashem, even if you're sinners. It's a very famous Gemara, 2 Gemara actually. There are very famous Gemara that say, even if you're a sinner, you're still called a child of Hashem. Gemara Sanhedrin he quotes here as well. Would seem there would be no problem, even if you're a sinner. Why would Hashem not want to hear you bless His Torah? It's not the way it would seem to work. He quotes over here the Yam Shel Shlomo. The Yam Shel Shlomo says, "Amma Adetz that's a Rasha can't go for Kohen. You have a Kohen that's a Amma Adetz Rasha. You have a Kohen. Kohen is supposed to go first to the Torah. What if a Kohen is a Rasha? So Halakha says that the Kohen that's a Rasha should not go before another Kohen or a rabbi. If you have a Talmid Chacham that's Israel, and the Rasha Kohen, it's very problematic to send up this. He's the only Kohen in the shul. It could be a big problem to send this Kohen up before the rabbi. If he's just a Stam Kohen doesn't have to be a rabbi. He's a regular guy. Yes, he can go. But we're talking about a Rasha over here. Shouldn't go before the rabbi for Kohen. So the Yam Shel Shlomo says, it says over there he shouldn't go for Kohen before the rabbi. If a Rasha can't go to the Torah, it should have said he shouldn't go to the Torah at all. That's not what it says. It says he shouldn't go for Kohen, which means he can go for Shishi or Hamishi. He can send the Kohen later to the Torah. So it's only mashma that when it comes to the special preference we give to the aliyah Kohen, the first aliyah, he can't get that special preference. But any other aliyah, Shilishi, not Shilishi, Ribi'i, Hamishi, Shishi, Mashlim, Mosif, for sure, Yam Shlomo says it's mashma that he can go up. So there's another proof that Amadis or not Amadis, Arasha can go to the Torah.
Oh, can.
Yes. Just not for Aliyah Kohen, not for the special privilege of Kohen. Peri Megadim, I'm going in order, by the way, of the Yehave Daat. I'm going outside quick. The Peri Megadim says, he says, two brothers can't go to the Torah back to back. Two brothers, a father and a son, right? We all know this, right? Can't go back to back to the Torah. And what is his reason he gives? Is because that when you go to the Torah, you're giving testimony that Hashem gave the Torah. And two brothers can't give testimony together. Two relatives can't give, close relatives can't be edim together to give testimony. And so therefore, if you're pasul le'edut, you can't go up for the Torah. This is what the Peri Megadim says the reason is for the back-to-back prohibition. And he says, mashma from that, if someone else is always pasul for edut, because he's a rasha, an evil person, a rasha who does sins, can't be a witness in court. A witness has to be someone that we trust, that follows the laws. If someone's a rasha, he's pasul edut. And so therefore, he says, mashma, we know there's a halacha. As you can see the theme here, it doesn't really say anywhere straight out the halacha about this question. So we're going from mashma'ut from somewhere. Two can't go to the Torah because they're pasul edut. Someone who's always pasul edut should never go to the Torah. So the Peri Megadim, now we have someone on the other team who's saying a rasha should not go to the Torah. A rasha is someone who violates the Torah knowingly and willingly. Cannot be an cannot go to the Torah. However, the Maharam Miruttenberg argues, and he says, "What in the world?"
The question if the premises of the conclusion is one only. Is it only the two brothers cannot go because, or there are other
exactly
reasons?
What the Maharam Miruttenberg says. Yeah. Maharam Miruttenberg says, and I'm sure most of us know the real reason why two brothers can't go back to back is because of ayin hara.
I know. That's
the real reason. So Maharam Miruttenberg says your reason is wrong. The whole premise is wrong. That's not the reason. You don't send back to back because of ayin hara. It's not nice. And so therefore, ayin hara doesn't apply to the rasha. So your proof that the rasha cannot go up is removed, and therefore a rasha can go to the Torah, says the Maharam Miruttenberg.
Also, the whole concept of mishtameh mikach has to be very accurate. It's enough that you have one change between one rule to another, and you could say no, it doesn't.
When you learn Gemara, you have a sada shaveh shebahen, but then when you have one piece that doesn't fit the puzzle,
then it breaks
the comparison is off. Yeah, and this is only because there's no rock solid proof anywhere.
Yeah,
it's not like I've never seen a Gemara address this question: can a rasha go to the Torah? This doesn't exist, and so we're looking for something that's not there. The Gra also argues on the Peri Megadim when he said that two brothers are because of pasul edut, and the Gra says, you think that you can't send people up there to the Torah that are pasul edut? Why? Remember the first Gemara in Megillah? Even children can go to the Torah. Children can't give edut. Children can't be witnesses in court. And so what are you talking about? So the Gra also smashes the Peri Megadim's proof and says going to the Torah has nothing to do with being kosher for a witness. The Sefer Hasidim, he says someone who violates a commandment from the Torah should not go up for that reading. If someone shaves with a razor,
and the kriya
is about shaving, exactly. Don't give him that. It's a
because now it's a
slap in the face to Hashem.
It's a slap in the face.
If someone is a kohen and he's married to a divorced woman, when we read the portion about a kohen not being allowed to be married to a divorced woman, don't send him up to that part.
Oh, we already agreed that he wouldn't go Rishon anyway.
Exactly. That aliyah is not Rishon. It's close though. Isha, Isha, Yerushalayim, Isha Latikahu. I think it could be Rishon actually. Yeah. It's very early. It's either Rishon. No, it's Rishon. You're right. It is Rishon. I'm wrong. And I'm the reader. It is Rishon. It is aliyah Rishon. So you would not send him. What Parashah is that now?
Kedoshim?
I think it could be. You know your stuff. And etc. So if someone violates Shabbat, don't send them up for the Shabbat aliyah. This is what the Sefer Hasidim says. But other aliyot, send them. The Knesset Gedolah says opposite. Opposite.
Send him.
Send him up.
Embarrass him. Wake him up.
Mamash. So he says opposite. It's violating a mitzvah from the Torah. He doesn't appreciate that Hashem said you're not allowed to do this. Send him up there. Let him melt in his shoes. And let him say, okay, I'm never doing this again. Who agrees with the Knesset Gedolah? The Hidah. The Hidah says he agrees with him. He says, Betafka, send him up. There's no better chance to turn this guy around.
But we're learning that, at least at this point, because we haven't gone inside deeper, we're learning that all of it is more about opinion and perception,
yes.
and
it's not a rock solid.
It's not
right.
Halachic.
Yeah. So there are some poskim who talk about embarrassing someone, but you're trying to make someone turn around. I mean, you have a guy who's violating the Torah every single second. You have a chance to turn him around. But there are others who say these days nobody even knows what the Torah aliyah is. Nobody knows Hebrew anymore. So what are you going to do if the guy's not religious and he's not Israeli? Odds are he doesn't even know what he's saying anyway.
Yeah, but I can't say that because they're learning Torah. They're learning the same books in Eretz Israel, and they all know Hebrew.
Yeah, in Israel. The question is, do they care?
But I would say to what you say is that you don't really embarrass him.
Listen,
he's
it's a Torah
embarrassing himself, and it's from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So the Malbim Pnei Chavero Barabim does not apply over here.
And so we're going to wrap it up quick today. Yes. So far, as you can see, we're not finding any solid ground to make someone not be allowed to go to the Torah. So now I'm on this part of this thing over here. If you're following, if you see over here, now I'm going on to this section, the second paragraph of Yehave Daat.
Well, no, B'Sefer.
Oh no. Ben Ish Chai says it's not really a halakha, like we're saying. It's not really a halakha. Ben Ish Chai, not in the Sefer Ben Ish Chai, in Al Pa'alim, in his Sheilot Shubot. I think we have a set here, but it's always hard to find. He says it's not really a forbidden thing to send someone to the Torah if he's Rasha. If you can try to abide by those saying not to, then try to it. But don't forget, we never want to make a fight in the shul. Ben Ish Chai says, you never want to make a fight in the shul. And if a guy's going to say, why don't you send up my son? Why don't you send up my uncle, my grandfather? Why did you send me? Send the guy up. If it comes to a fight in the shul or people having bad blood towards religion, it's not worth it. So just send the guy for the aliyah. If you can do it in a tactful way, Ben Ish Chai says, then okay, do it. This is right at the end of the, I believe it's right here. Then go ahead and try to abide by this thing and not send the guy up. Rambam, let's read two things inside and then we'll finish. Rambam, who wants to read? Moshe, you the reader? Read loud so that YouTube can hear you, yeah? Here. Yeah, here, read here, right here. Rambam, chapter 15 of 50, law 6.
כהן שלא היה לו דבר מכל אלו הדברים המונעים נשיאת כפיים, אף על פי שאינו חכם ואינו מדקדק במצוות.
So Kohen, even if he's not observant Kohen, he doesn't keep mitzvot, right?
או שהיו הבריות מרננים אחריו.
People talk badly about him for what he does.
או שלא היה משאו ומתנו בצדק.
He's not honest in business.
הרי זה נושא את כפיו.
Still goes for Kohani. Don't tell him not to go for Kohani. Why?
לפי שזו מצוות עשה על כל כהן.
Because it's a mitzvah from the Torah to do it. These are the very important words of Rambam. Go ahead.
וכהן שראוי לנשיאת כפיים, ואין אומרים לאדם רשע, אוסף רשע וימנע מן המצוות.
That's the golden words. But one more time.
אין אומרים לאדם רשע, אוסף רשע וימנע מן המצוות.
What Rambam says a rule here.
Yeah.
It sounds like a cloud. We don't tell. This is a rule of kiruv. It's a philosophy. Don't tell a bad person to add more bad things to the ledger. There's a person's not keeping Torah mitzvot. You're going to withhold from him one more mitzvah? What are you, crazy? Now he has a chance to go to the Torah and do a mitzvah. You're going to say, no, yeah. Exactly. You're going to say, no, you're a Rasha, you can't do this mitzvah? That's not Judaism. Rambam says it straight out. Rambam says, a person has a chance to add another mitzvah, no matter what he's done in his past. Give the guy another mitzvah. Very important cloud from Rambam. We can't
Not
stress
only
this enough.
past, present.
Yeah.
He's called
He's currently
Rasha.
dinner, which means he drove to shul on Shabbat. And you know he's driving home on Shabbat. Now, according to this Rambam, give the guy one mitzvah. Give the guy a mitzvah.
But he's setting the rule on mitzvah taseh midoraita.
No,
So-
that's why he was talking about. Good point. He's saying Moshe is saying because Kohanim is a mitzvah from the Torah. Where is the mitzvah to read Torah? That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Good point. They talk about it also in here.
Yeah.
Good point. But Hacham Ovadia uses this as a proof to the other side. He uses it as a proof. Even if you're going to say that reading Torah is not a mitzvah from the Torah, it's still a good thing to do. Don't tell him to add and continue being bad. You have a bad kid in school. You don't just throw him in the corner and let him continue being bad. Turn him around. Try to turn him around. Okay, this is Rambam. The Bet Yosef says, first of all, if I just read the Kesef Mishnah, so again, Kesef Mishnah, the Bet Yosef, Maran Bet Yosef wrote the Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam. First, he wrote this. And here's what he says. Moshe, listen to me. He says on this Rambam, it's over here. The Amrina Yerushalayim, Shema Tomar Ish Peloni Kohen Megale Arayot. Maybe you're going to say this guy is married to someone who's not allowed to be married to. That's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Or maybe he's a murderer, God forbid. I still bless him, Hashem says. Rabbeinu, which is anytime he says Rabbeinu, means Rambam. Rambam explains, someone who doesn't keep the mitzvot. People talk badly about him. But however, if he killed on purpose, if he killed for sure a person, we did this halakha a couple of weeks ago in the ladies' class. With the Kohanim, if a Kohen killed someone, he cannot go for Kohanim. Did we not know this? If a Kohen killed someone, he can't go for Kohanim. Very, very short, because we did it in the ladies' class. There's a mahloket between the Maran and the Ramah. Sephardim and Ashkenazim. The Ramah says he can do teshuvah, get back to doing Kohanim, and Maran's Shulchan Aruch sounds very, very iffy about it. Even with teshuvah, it sounds according to Maran's Shulchan Aruch, even with teshuvah, if a Kohen has blood on his hands, he can't bless the people. How can you give the people shalom when you have blood in your hands? Hacham Ovadia has a whole teshuvah on this, and he says a Kohen that was in a car accident, and he killed someone in a car accident, if he was going above the speed limit, if he was texting while he was driving, he doesn't say that, but if he was violating or there's some negligence on his part, he's done forever for Kohanim. He cannot do Kohanim. He has blood on his hands. If he was a perfect citizen, Hamadia says, perfect citizen, seatbelt, speed limit, hands at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock on the wheel, and he didn't do anything wrong, and someone just jumped in the middle of the road, then he can go back to it. Otherwise, according to Sephardim, no. And Milchama, you're allowed. If you're in Sahal, he says it's self-defense. Self-defense in Sahal, you're allowed to go and do one. And so, again, back to this halakha. So, Kesef Mishneh says over here, we're talking about someone who has sins on his hands, not murder, for Kohen. But for a Sefer Torah, maybe even. Okay, that's Kesef Mishneh. Two more things and we'll wrap it up. The Bach says,
So what do you mean say for Sefer Torah maybe even?
Murder is a problem when it comes to Kohanim.
Okay, but we're talking right.
For Torah,
not murder,
killing. But Sefer Torah, it might not even be a problem. It's a special halakha by Kohanim. You can't give a beracha if you have blood in your hands.
Correct.
It might not be forbidden to send someone who killed someone to the Torah. I'm saying, Torah is easier. The Bach on this, the Bach on the Tur, he says even if you know someone is actively married to someone who's not allowed to be married to, Mamash, alayot, one of the three worst things you could do. Rambam says, according to Rambam, send them up. The Bach says. Bet Yosef says, if a Kohen is married to a divorced woman, you can't send him up. And it says in Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch 128:40, I believe. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 128:40, he says, Kohen shenasa girusha, a Kohen that's married to a divorced woman. A Kohen cannot marry a divorced woman. Lo yisad kapav, he can't do Kohanim. Then noagin bo kedusha, and you don't give him preference with kedusha. Afilu the kopa Torah, even to read the Torah, but rishon. First.
Yeah, just the preference. He loses the preference.
He loses the preference. This is a diuk that some people don't agree with. This diuk, rishon, is the powerful word here. He
So
can't go
halakha.
first.
That's not.
This is halakha. This is Manash Haruk.
Yeah.
Haruk says, your book. He can't go up rishon. Chamadia says, he doesn't know that word rishon. He can go up hamishi, rebi'i, shishi. He can go up later. Okay, let's read.
So we give the Kohanim the preference for kavod because of the kuna, no other thing, right?
Because of the kimona, yeah.
Right, no other thing.
The Gemara says because we don't want to fight, and so therefore.
Okay, but it's all about kavod.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense because basically what he says, it doesn't prevent him to go, but because he's not on the highest level anymore, he doesn't deserve the kavod.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense.
But he can go Mustama for the other parts.
Yeah.
Reb Zalman, the Chabad Shulchan Aruch, he also says you can send the people up. Yerushalayim, I don't think he says. He doesn't address that. But you can send them up, sinner up to the Torah. No problem. He would agree. The Yabetz writes here, there's interesting words here. The Yam Shalomo, Yemesh Shalomo Kamhi. He says, the halakha is to be lenient. Ubefrat b'dorotenu, ele, in our generation, kol ish hayashar be'enav ya'aseh. Everyone just does whatever they want. Nobody knows. People are not religious not because they're bad people. They just don't know. They go to public school. Nobody even knows to tell them the right way from the wrong way. It's not their fault. Especially regarding shaving with a razor. A lot of people are doing it. It's already considered allowed for them. They think it's fine. They never even heard that it's not allowed. And he says over here in the Shev Yaakov, most people are just doing it, the razor. They think there's a new leniency that came out. With the razor, maybe they say there was no such thing as an electric razor in the time of the Torah, whatever they're saying. They have there's a Torah logic to make it allowed. It's not correct. But they say the Torah cares about honoring people, being nice and honoring. And so therefore, if I feel that it's kavod for the bidiyot, I should have a razor, it should be allowed. They're wrong, but they justify it. They're not even pasul for edut, he would say. Okay. Let's wrap up with the sikum. Ready? Sikum? Ha'ikal lehalakha. Hakam Vadia says, the bottom line halakha. You can allow people who use a razor to go to the Torah. They can even be counted for the 7 olim. Now this is always an issue when we have a bar mitzvah or a hatuna and you have guests who are driving to shul. Everyone always says, let's try to get more people to the Torah, add more sifim to the Torah to make sure we have 7 religious people.
So it sounds like
It says over here in the beginning, let's finish the sikum. According to the first part, from the ikat halacha, they are counted for the 7 olim. If it's possible, יותר טוב, it's nice and better, שלא יהיו בכלל מניין 7 עולים של חבת היום. That they shouldn't be part of the 7 for Shabbat or part of the 5 of Yom Tov. אלא מן העולים הנוספים של חבת היום. Let them be the mosifim if it's possible. If it's not going to cause a fight. If it's going to cause a fight, don't do it. And this is something that we will forget sometimes in shul. If it's going to
not even a fight.
If it's bad blood, or maybe even Torah, he doesn't address Torah Tzibur in this one. That could be a fight also. I know someone that does that. But if it's bad blood, someone's going to have not come back to shul.
Let it go.
Let it go. The words of wise people are said nicely. To Show them the right way. Make them be mahazit tshuva in a nice, sweet way, not in a mean way. Hey, you can't go up for shlishi. Don't do that. The rabbi was telling me that he was in another shul, and this guy, a kohen that was married to a gedusha or a convert, came up to go up, and someone yelled, "Hey, get down! You can't go up to the aliyah." I'm not sure that's how. I mean, Maran Shulchan says not to. We don't want fights in the shul, though. It's a very valuable tip.
He says he cannot go to Noseh Kapayim?
No, Maran to go to the Torah first. Aliyah kohen.
No, I don't think you read it as cannot. No, you don't give him the preference.
Kohen shenasa gedusha, lo yisa et kapav, ve'en nohagin bo kedusha.
Lo yisa kapav.
Yeah. Ve'en nohagin bo kedusha, afilu l'kop rishon. You can't sit down for rishon. Kohanim and rishon. But we also don't want fights in the shuls. You have to have a head. You have to have a sechel. You have to do things in a smart way. Ki derechei darchei noam, v'chol antavot yashalom. You look like you have a question. What's your issue?
I don't understand halakha because the Rambam says lo mosifim resha lerasha.
Like I said, there's a special halakha about kohanim.
Yeah.
Kohanim is a special halakha. Otherwise, so the bottom line halakha is as follows. We all know. If someone asks you, are we allowed to send up a guy who drove to shul?
Yes.
And there's Moshe taught that are not here. Moshe Feinstein has 3 teshuvot, I think, on this. Yes, according to the bottom line halakha, yes, it is allowed to send them up. You want to be strict? You want to not count them for the 7? Adult, be strict, but do it in a very sweet way. If it's going to lead to a fight, don't do it at all.
Hazak u'baruch.